Okay, I've got Metasploit Pro running on my Windows 7 VM, and this may look a little bit different than the Metasploit you saw in a previous session. In that session, we looked at the community version of Metasploit that's sitting on Backtrack. So it's a little bit different, but it actually does the same thing. So what we want to do is scan that website, that 192, 168, 163, 145, which is the badstore.net. So I'm going to scan and put in my target address here. 192.168.163.145, and we can look at some advanced options if you like. We're not going to exclude any addresses. We don't really need to put any custom arguments in here, but you could if you wanted to. And there's all kinds of different things you can put in here, usernames, passwords, and so forth. So I'm going to go ahead and hide these advanced options again and launch the scan. And it's going to take a little bit of time to scan the box. So it's going to run a scan against the Badstore website, the box that it's running, the VM itself. And it's going to use some other tools. Remember I said earlier in the course that a lot of these advanced tools with the nice fancy GUIs and so forth really just use some of our other tools as backends, like Metasploit uses Nmap, for example, as its backend scanner to do discovery scanning and so forth. And you can see here in the status window that it's calling Nmap from the command prompt. You can see the different switches that it uses with Nmap right there. So it's starting Nmap and it's going to scan for a little while. And it can take a little bit of time to scan here. So we're going to watch it scan a little bit. We'll see what we get out of it. So it's finished its Nmap scan. And basically, it found a lot of the things we would expect to find that we saw earlier in Nmap. We saw port 3306 open, which is MySQL, 443 for HTTPS, and port 80 open. So we can also do some other things in Metasploit Pro. We can click brute force here, and I'll show you some of the options it can give you. It gives you the ability to brute force certain services, for example. And you can turn all of these on if you like. And it's showing you that there's a lockout risk. And some of these there's a high risk, and some of these there's a low risk or a medium risk, to where you could actually lock yourself out of the box itself. There's some advanced options here as well. And basically those look like the other ones that we looked at earlier, where we could exclude certain addresses out of a range. We could select certain credentials. We can even change the payload settings from interpreter. So there's some limiters here, some throttles, and so forth. And don't feel bad if you don't know what all these options mean. Metasploit can actually be very complicated, regardless of which version it is. So take the time to go through some of these and figure out exactly what they do before you launch an attack. Let's hide these advanced options here. And I'm going to go back up here, and we could select a couple of these options. And I'm going to go back, however. And we can get back to where we were before, and I'll show you the exploit tab here. And the exploit tab basically gives you the ability to exploit the vulnerabilities that you find. And we'll scroll through here, and you can use the payload settings here and the exploit selection here. You can basically pick which ports you want, which exploits you want to use, and how many you want to run at a time. So there's a lot of different options here that you can use for Metasploit Pro. I'm going to click exploit. And we're going to go ahead and let it run a little bit. It'll take a little bit of time. So we'll watch it scroll a little bit on the screen. And then I'll pause the recording so we can see what it looks like at the end there. Okay, the exploit run is complete against that box, against our badstore.net site. And it actually tried several exploits that did not work. And you can actually just click on the side here and kind of scroll up and see what some of the things it did. It did some shellcode exploits. It also saw zip by. It logged in as admin and admin a couple of times, so I know that it got access. But it sent several different vulnerabilities to the website, the application itself, the server, and so forth. So it was able to exploit some things, and some things it was not. So that's really one big difference between vulnerability scanning and penetration testing. Vulnerability scanning will tell you what the possible vulnerabilities are that could be exploited, whereas penetration testing can basically confirm which ones really are exploitable. So it actually tried a few exploits based upon vulnerabilities that it found that weren't exploitable. So that can be the difference between knowing really and thinking what the vulnerabilities are. And here we can see a successful login of admin and admin. We've started some reverse shells here and so forth on it. This was just a quick demonstration. There's a lot more really to be done if you really want to attack this box. And Metasploit Pro, a lot of people like it. If you're used to the old Metasploit, though, the one that was basically just in Linux, that comes with Backtrack, then most people who have done this for a while like that one a little bit better because it gives you a little bit more flexibility than this does. So that's just a quick demonstration of Metasploit Pro attempting to exploit our Bad Store website.